Okay, if I could have your attention, please. I'd like to call on Karen to give us an invocation, and we'll have a pledge to the flag. Please stand.
Let's bow our head. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us this opportunity to come to this meeting. We're asking for your guidance during this time. And as we all depart back to our individual homes, we're asking for your traveling mercy and grace. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll now have the reading and approval of the previous minutes.
I will make a motion that they be approved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
And we have a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Karen wasn't here.
That's right, I wasn't here, so
You don't know whether they're
I
right.
don't know. I'm going to go with the majority.
Thank you. We have no old business. And before we get into the zoning request, Wes, we need to appoint a new secretary. And you have a recommendation.
I do have a recommendation for Bethany Brown, and she is my left-hand person in the office.
That's me.
So, for the board's benefit, Wes and I have been communicating about this appointment. So let me just share with you a little bit about Bethany. She's been with the Pickens County Planning and Development for almost a year now, a little over a year. Previously with Union County, 15 years as a county technician in the federal office, and for NRCS, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, reviewing corrosion control plans, working with farmers through the Farm Bill. She has her plan review certification, the gray card. I'm not familiar with the gray card, but I suspect it was something you had to earn.
It is. It's something you have to test for. Yes, sir.
And complies with all continuing education.
I've never met anybody with a green card.
Wes says she's a welcome asset to the Pickens County Planning Development.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to accept Bethany as our secretary?
So moved.
We have moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion approved. Thank you. Welcome, Bethany.
Thank you.
All right. We'll now move on to our first and only rezoning tonight, RZ 190369. John Heard on behalf of Debora Heard. Wes, would you give us a overview and recommendation?
Yes, this is RZ 22-190369. It is John W. Heard on behalf of Debbie Heard, aka Debora B. Heard, 1430 Eugenia Terrace, Lawrenceville, Georgia 30046. The agent is John W. Heard. The location is 945 Highway 108, Jasper, Georgia 30143. It's a rezoning from AG Agricultural to RR Rural Residential. The parcel ID is 065B-003. It's to sell a 3-acre parcel. Proposed use is to sell a 3-acre parcel to a neighbor to combine with his 4.4-acre tract zoned RR, Rural Residential. Current land use again is AG Agricultural, and the character area is a suburban infill area. The lot size, the survey shows 65.124 acres, and the tax office shows 64.04 acres. It's not often you see it go up, but sometimes it does. And it's on Waleska Highway 108. Our executive summary was the applicant request to rezone a total of 65.124 acres on the new survey. The tax office has 64.04 acres at 945 Highway 108 from AG to RR. And the parcel is 65B003. The applicant is requesting the change for the ability to sell an approximate 3-acre tract to their adjoining property neighbor, whose property is on RR. Yes, I've got it. As we went through the 7 criteria, and I want to make sure we do that, I have addressed the 7 criteria for the infield, I always want to make sure, suburban infield area. So I'm going to start putting that in the record so people do know that we do look at all 7 criteria. And the recommendation, the staff recommends approval of the rural residential zoning request on map parcel number 065B003. And additional comments, I want to say in addition to this memo, I hereby incorporate the entirety of my office's files and the video recording of the Planning Commission's hearing, including but not limited to all witness testimony, in order that this information be a part of the record and shall be available for the Board of Commissioners to review. Any other questions?
So we're rezoning the full 65 acres, and he's subsequently going to sell 3 acres
Correct.
to a neighbor. And so the remaining 62 acres will continue under the new designation.
That is what I'm saying, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Mr. Heard,
Yes, sir.
welcome.
Thank you.
Stand and rise and tell us your address. And
I'm John Heard. I live at 1430 Eugenia Terrace in Lawrenceville, Georgia. My wife inherited the property. Want me to go into the detail?
Sure.
My wife inherited the property about 15 years ago from her aunt and uncle. She was the sole heir. They bought the property back in the 50s, and they both worked at Lockheed and had it as kind of a passive farm, of which has remained to this time. I started helping them with it about 20 years ago, of keeping it bush hogged, and have never actually used it for cattle or anything. But my intentions, now that I'm retired, I retired about a year ago, and Lawrenceville has changed radically in the 25 years that we've lived there, and we're
Really?
intent on a little bit. So we're intent on moving back over this way. She was born in Ball Ground, I was born in Freeholm. So we want to move back over this way and have no intentions of doing anything else with the property. Jesse came to me about 3 months ago or so. His son is getting married, and he wanted to have his son live next door to him. They asked if we were selling 3 acres, and I said, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. And I said, but we better check with planning and development and make sure everything's kosher with that. And when I did, they said, well, it's minimum 10 acres on agricultural. And I went to Jesse, and he said, no, we can't do 10 acres, we can only do 3. So that's when he came back and talked through the rezoning process, and that's how we got here today.
so your intent is to ultimately live on the 62 acres.
My desire. My wife's not in real great health right now. She's got some back problems and knee problems and some depression issues. So if we can get her health to where it needs to be, and maybe getting something working out over here might be just the key to make that happen.
I used to live in Gwinnett County. It's better here than it was in Gwinnett County.
I agree.
Any questions for Mr. Heard from the board?
My only question was just, I think we've worked through some of it, was just why we're rezoning the entire tract, and it seems to me that it would be possible to.
Well, you can't subdivide less than 10 acres, so I didn't
Right.
want to, so I didn't want to chop off 10 acres
Right.
and have a parcel left that's mixed zoning, so
I
that's.
understand, that was the only thing that didn't register with me.
And the planning office has told me clearly that the taxes won't change on the property. It's based on use, not on zoning. So if the taxes were changing, we'd be having a different conversation.
You don't have it in conservancy, so that changing it from agriculture wouldn't be a problem with the taxes. No?
That's what I understand. It's not my say-so on that. What I've been told that it's in the use of the property and not necessarily the designation.
That's what the tax office told me also.
Okay. As long as you got it from the tax office.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not me.
We had that conversation.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you. Well, so that's why your wife is letting you speak for her tonight, because,
She's not healthy enough to get over here.
I don't know that my wife would let me always speak for her.
Well, we've been married for 47 years now, so we've gotten through those issues a long time ago.
Well, I'm almost at 48, so.
Well, we're right in there together then.
Maybe there's hope for me. Okay. Is it Tammy Russell?
Yes.
Hey, Tammy, come forward, please, and come on up. We want to see you. People tell us they can't hear us, so we want to be able to hear you. So tell us your address and what you'd like to say.
First of all, my name is Tammy Russell, and I'm here on behalf of my parents, Sam and Joyce Wynn, who live at 4 Old Waleska Road, which is across the street
Okay.
from the applicant. And so I'm just here to say we oppose the rezoning of the entire 65 acres, not necessarily the rezoning of just the 3 that they are wanting to separate out of the 65. And the reason being is because once you approve the whole entire 65 acres for the rezoning, which y'all were aware, no matter at any time, the applicant has the choice, whether it be the next day or years, to immediately sell or develop that into a subdivision without another hearing at all. So the homeowners around are out of their voice, basically based off what you approved tonight. And the other reasons is living on that road, my parents, it's really hard right now to get in and out of the driveway because of all the traffic that's coming back and forth from the 18-wheelers, and it's just a cut through basically to 515. There's no sewer down that road at all to handle if it ever was developed into a subdivision, the 65 acres. And Tate school system is maxed out now, which would put it in over its max if they ever develop that with all the homes, because you're looking at what, a home per acre, which is at least 2 cars per home, and so you're looking at maybe another 130 or more children that would be added to Tate school system. So we oppose the whole entire zoning of the 65 acres, basically is what it boils down to. And not the 3 to 4 acre tract, but the entire tract of land.
Any questions for Ms. Russell? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Could I ask, I think her,
Let's first hear from, we'll come back to you. Joseph?
Yes, sir.
Joseph Derrick. Come forward, please. Tell us your address and what you got to say.
My address is 239 Green Ridge Road, which is directly across the creek from Mr. Heard's property. As we were talking, I kind of feel the same way with her on the leaving it ag, but I'm not opposed to him having, I mean, I approve the 3 acres, but I would really like to see it stay agricultural, because if a subdivision does come in there, it's my whole backyard. But I'm okay with him, building over there. But I just wanted to throw that out there about that, because my wife she's been devastated about this kind of news, so.
It would ruin everything, a subdivision.
But John's a great neighbor. He's a great neighbor.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we have Jesse.
So I live at 697 Waleska Highway 108. I'm the one looking to purchase the 3 acres from Jared for my son, obviously to build a house on. Our 4.4 acres joins his on the creek. And I have to say, as far as the subdivision goes, with the way the property lays out, I'm not sure that could ever happen. it would be tough the way that they were laid out because of the power line that's running through it. So I'm not going to, I'm forward because I really don't think it could ever happen the way the power line runs through the property, the way that it does. So yeah, we're just looking to buy it, keep my son close by. That's all we're looking to do. So,
Very good. Questions from the board? Mr. Heard.
Well, my comment would be, as I told you before, as a profession, I'm an architect. I've practiced architecture for 40 some odd years, commercially, doing schools and hotels all over the southeast. And this property is, if you walk it, as Jesse said, a large portion of it has that power line across it, which eliminates any possible development there. Then down on the creek, it is all bottom land that wouldn't perk for homes anyway. And then the area that's still in woods back to behind the residence is extremely steep and would be very, very difficult to cut into lots other than 7 or 8 acres anyway. So we have no plans of developing it.
West has no way to achieve what Mr. Heard is trying to do.
I'm just thinking myself, one correction I would say is that it's, with our designation, it's 1.5 acre lots, not one, just so you know, it's 1.5. That doesn't change the narrative. And I don't quite know how you can put conditions on that would allow for what is achieved but does not allow for development, or at least in the next 2 years you will have to come before you again on a subdivision here in this county.
State that again.
In the next 2 years we will have to go before this board to do a development any more than 7 lots.
That starts in 2 years?
I would say we're working on it now. When it's implemented, I would say hopefully July of next year, but that's just my optimism.
Did, Ms. Russell, did you understand that?
My understanding is that you're going to be putting something in place but that won't take place until 2 years.
It's not a time limit. What I'm saying is there may be conditions that can be put on this to give some restriction of sorts. I understand the position that 10 acres would be hard to distribute. 6 tracts in a place that's got probably 1 tract of nothing but power line. However, you could probably do 5 acre tracts to family and things like that instead of 10 acre tracts. I don't know if he's saying he's not going to build, and maybe there should be a proposal to make a restriction that no development should be allowed until it went before the board. I don't know what to say here.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
On the ag, with the 1 split that you're allowed a year under ag, which means you'd have to have 10 acres split. I understand that he doesn't want to purchase the 10 acres, but if you split the 1 time for the 10 acres, could you then take the 10 acres and rezone just the 10 acres out so that he could get his 3 acres out of the 10, that would leave the other 50 or 55 acres untouched under ag, and then just the 10 would be rezoned under the R&R.
You could, and there's other designations besides RR. You could do small ag, which is 3 acres, or you could do, small ag 5 acres, or estate residential, which is 3 acres.
Without rezoning the whole entire 65?
Well, that could probably be. There would have to be a survey for the actual 3 acre tract that's been sold in order to do, I'm supposed to be addressing y'all, there has to be a 3 acre tract that would have to be surveyed in order to do that. And I think that was one of the problems. There was not a survey for the 3 acres.
So There is a
But there was a survey for the 65.
Yeah, but there will be a survey at some point for the 3 acres.
Correct.
So my understanding is there is a possibility of just rezoning the 3 acres
Sure.
if he produces a survey of the 3 acres that he wants to split out of the 65.
Correct.
Okay.
I can also say that 20% of his land is probably in floodplain. So 20% of that, if you're taking that out, that's almost 20 acres. There's 12 acres plus a 300 mile, so we're 15, 16 acres of that. Everything on the creek, so far off the creek, is considered flood, because I live part of it on the creek, so I know what the flood zone is on it. So, I mean, it's really not even the 50 acres. You're taking that much out of it, so you're really looking at, what, 35 acres, 40 acres at most that could go on. And then with a power line running through, you're probably even downsizing it more than that. Just as being as a builder, knowing these things, you're probably downsizing it even more than that. So you're probably not looking at 10 or 15 acres that's 20 at top. It's going to be buildable to start with.
Okay.
So anything on the creek so far off is considered a floodplain, considered the creek ranger property all the way through on the right.
So
'cause
then
it
just
pulls its
rezoning
money.
the 3 acres would be fine if he can't develop any of the 65.
So that-
No matter what, he can
Let's
develop a
have,
floodplain anyway.
Let's have order here.
We
Okay.
need, yeah, we need to have all the questions directed here and not. Mr. Heard?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that spot zoning is not the issue. There are several parcels there that are RR already, and then including hers.
All right. Is there any further discussion from the board? Do I have a motion?
There's an awful lot of rural residential all around this property already. I will make a motion that we recommend approval.
You have a motion to recommend approval. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, thank you for your comments. We appreciate your attendance.
I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you. Hold on 1 minute.
Before you get on, introduce yourself.
Are there board comments? Any board comments? Let me mention, under this section, we've had some concerns expressed by some of the folks that have attended other meetings when we had large crowds, that we weren't allowing adequate time for discussion. And so Wes was good enough to pull up the Georgia Code, which says minimum time should be no less than 10 minutes per side, which is pretty well the policy that we've had ever since I've been on this board, which is, gosh, I think it's 10 years, Pat. And you were here when I was here.
We've been here a while.
And Harold was here then.
Yes.
I've been here since day one.
So I think what we're going to do, I just wanted to bring this to your attention, that in the future, we're going to, based on the size of the crowd and the complexity of the issue, I may elect to deviate from that 10 minutes and give a little bit longer. But having said that, I'm going to ask folks to not repeat everything that we've already heard. So I just wanted to share that particular thing. And so we now have public comments.
Clayton, let me address that a little bit, just so people know. You can extend the time in either side, but equal time has to be given to the opposition.
Right.
Okay. So if you give them an extra 15 minutes, so does the proponent have that 15 minutes, if they so choose. Okay.
Okay. We're to public comments now. Mr. Hurd, did you have a comment?
Well, I was, based on my experience in Gwinnett, you put it on the opposition and the speakers to coordinate their group so that they consolidated into a 10-minute session.
We have tried to do that. There's always strong opinions and you know, it's not like where your wife will allow you to come here and speak for her. There are certain people that always want to be able to have their words said. And I understand that. I understand. Sometimes these things can get exciting.
Yes, I've seen it.
And we have to. Further discussion from the board? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move.
So moved. All in favor? Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.